We've all heard the saying, right? Work smarter, not harder. But what if that's actually a false choice? What if the real secret is learning how to work incredibly hard, but only on the things that are truly smart? Well, there's a principle for that, and we're going to break it down. I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? We all have the exact same 24 hours in a day, but some people, they just seem to get so much more done. They're launching companies, training for marathons, and somehow still have time for their families. Are they just spinning faster on the hamster wheel? Or do they figure something out that the rest of us haven't? Okay, let's get one thing straight. There is a massive difference between being busy and being productive. Being busy means your calendar is jammed, you're always running around putting out fires. But being productive, that's about focused, high-impact effort. It's knowing exactly where to swing the sledgehammer to bring the whole wall down. And this is the key. The answer isn't to pick one side. It's about finding a way to combine them. And that's exactly where this amazing idea from Richard Koch's book, The 80-20 Principle, comes in. It's a framework that teaches you how to apply that hard work to the few things that are truly smart, and then have the guts to let the rest go. All right, so what is this rule, really? Well, at its heart, it's about a simple but profound truth. The relationship between what we do and what we get is almost never balanced. It's wildly, predictably lopsided. And the best part? We can use that imbalance to our advantage. So here it is in a nutshell. The 80-20 principle says that a small fraction of your inputs create the vast majority of your outputs. In other words, a tiny 20% of your efforts are likely responsible for a whopping 80% of your success, your happiness, basically all the results that really matter. Just look at that for a second. That tiny little sliver of effort is creating that huge chunk of results. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. And this isn't just some clever theory. It's a hidden pattern that exists all around us. And once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. And the crazy thing is, this whole idea started in a garden. Seriously, back in the 19th century, an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto noticed something odd. Only about 20% of his pea plants were producing 80% of his peas. So being a curious guy, he looked for this pattern elsewhere. And boom, he found that 20% of the people in Italy owned 80% of the land. The pattern held. So it started with peas, right? But believe me, this thing shows up absolutely everywhere, in pretty much every part of modern life. Let's look at some real-life examples you'll probably recognize. Just think about it for a second. In any business, isn't it true that a small handful of key customers bring in most of the money? Or back in school, wasn't it just a few key chapters or ideas that made up most of the final exam? And what about your friends? I bet a small core group of people are responsible for 80% of your laughter and support. See? It's everywhere. Now, let's flip this on its head, because this is where things get really interesting. If 20% of our efforts get us 80% of our results, what about the other 80% of our efforts? Well, that huge chunk of time and energy is only producing a tiny 20% of the outcome. That's the busy work. That's the stuff that fills our days but doesn't actually move the needle. And, it's super important to remember this isn't some rigid law of the universe. The numbers aren't always going to be a perfect 80-20 split. Sometimes it might be 90-10 or 70-30. Think about it. You could read 10 books, but one of them totally changes your life. That's the principle. The core idea is just this profound imbalance between cause and effect. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but it's pretty useless if we can't actually apply it, right? So how do we go from just knowing about this principle to actually living by it? Let's walk through a really simple 4-step framework you can start using today. But here's the thing, and this is really important. There's no magic list I can give you. My Vital 20% is going to be different from your Vital 20%. This isn't a one-size-fits-all formula. It's more like a map to help you investigate and discover what truly matters in your life. So step 1 is to identify. You have to become a detective in your own life. Look at your work, your hobbies, your relationships. What are the few things that create the most joy, the most progress, the most income? A big hint is to look at what you're passionate about. Step 2, focus. This is the hard part, honestly. It means making a conscious choice to spend more time on that Vital 20%, which means you have to simplify and cut back on everything else. Third, you test it. Don't go making massive life changes overnight. Just run a small experiment. Try it for 2 weeks. And finally, step 4, measure. You can't just rely on a gut feeling. You need to track your results because the data won't lie. That's how you'll know for sure what's really working. You know, when you start applying this, it's not just about rearranging your calendar. It's way bigger than that. It's about a fundamental shift in how you think about your time, your effort, and what it even means to be successful.
So what's the biggest hurdle? What stops most people from actually doing this? It's not the work involved. It's fear. It's the fear that if you stop doing 80% of the stuff you're currently doing, the whole house of cards is going to collapse. It's the fear that you might pick the wrong 20% to focus on. That fear is what keeps us stuck.
But here's the truth. You can't have progress without some risk. Real, meaningful change always requires a sacrifice. You have to be willing to give up the comfortable, familiar feeling of being busy for the slightly scary, uncertain potential of being truly effective. It's a leap of faith, for sure, but that's where the high rewards are. So I want to leave you with a couple of questions to really chew on. Start with this one. Right now, in your life, what is the 20% of your effort that's creating 80% of your positive results? Think about your career, your health, your relationships. What are those vital few things? And then you have to ask the really tough one. What is the 80% of your effort that's just keeping you busy? The endless emails, the meetings that could have been a Slack message, the tasks that fill your day but don't actually move you forward. You have to be brutally honest with yourself here. Because when you find the answers to those two simple questions, I promise you, everything changes. Your whole perspective shifts. You'll stop measuring your self-worth by how many hours you work, and you'll start measuring it by the impact you make. You will finally get off that hamster wheel of being busy and step into the incredible power of being effective.